Okay, two things, guys. The first time I forgot to actually put the stream key in, and since this is my first time setting up YouTube, telling it to send out notifications, I use OBS, which is streaming software. And that streaming software, you have to hit start streaming as well.
Still not seeing anything, dear. There we go.
Okay. Linnell had just said that she didn't see anything yet. There's like a 12-second delay. So I started this three times prior, and each time there was nothing. The first time I forgot to enter in the stream key. My mistake. Went back into YouTube, copied the stream key, put that in OBS, hit go live. It said, "Are you sure you want to go live?" I'm like, "Yeah, I'm sure." Well, OBS sent it to YouTube, and then YouTube sent me a notification, "Click here to go live." So you have to go live 3 times. You got to tell YouTube, then you've got to go back into OBS, and then OBS wants to make sure, and then YouTube sends back something, "Are you sure?" So I think we got it now. I don't even know what we had went over and what you guys actually heard, but this is a live review of this Squier, and this is the Nashville Tele, and this is the gold version. And before we get into reviewing the guitar, I do want to play it just a little bit, just for those people with really short attention spans that are going to click on this video later on. So here's what this guitar actually sounds like. No more blues riffs? Come on, guys. Rock and roll is the blues. Okay, I'm going to undo my amplifier here. This is a live show. So if you were watching this as a video, I would cut all this out. Well, it is a Nashville Tele. Do they play hair music in Nashville? They might. They claim Nashville is the new LA. That could very well be true. There's a couple guys on YouTube I actually watch that go over, the scene at Nashville. Evidently, there's a clique in Nashville, and that clique is you're either in it or you're not in it, if that makes sense. Okay, to my right, I do have the computer, but I am really depending on Linnell to contact me if there's anything super important that comes up.
Curtis Gale said then play some chicken picking. LOL.
Yeah, I like, if I could chicken pick, I would chicken pick rock and roll. That's just me. Okay, guys. What we normally do, we want to go over the general aesthetics of the guitar. Now, this guitar was $329. That's what I paid for the guitar. If you look, you can find them anywhere from $319 to $379. Reverb, Sweetwater, Guitar Center, Musician's Enemy. You can find them. I paid $329 for this one. So we want to look at what $329 gets you on a Fender product, a Squier. How good is the fit and finish on it? Now this particular guitar is done in the gold, and it does have a binding that goes all the way around the guitar. Now I always look at how crisp the binding is done. Now right here we do have a little spot in the binding, and this is a tape spot where they peeled the tape and it caught into the gold just a little bit. Right here we have another spot, and this is more of a flash where when they pulled the tape it kind of laid back over, and it creates with gold flake's really hard to do. If the flake isn't itemizing properly, you'll get this real weird look when the light hits it. That's what causes the streaks. I don't see the streaks in the gold, but right here, that was from a puddle. When they ran the gun around, there was a little bit of buildup there. When you sand through flake like that, it'll cause this little imperfection. And since we're doing this live, I'm not too sure if that'll actually show up, but it's right on the tip of the horn there. And that little, like I said, it's from the buildup of the flake paint where they sand it off smooth. It creates that little imperfection. Going around this way, it's very crisp. Not seeing anything. And I deliberately didn't look too close to this guitar until I did the review. I wanted to be, first pass. I have been playing it. And right here, again, it's the same as this spot here. And I'm going to say 95% of the people wouldn't see this, but I know what that is because I've done metal flake finishes, and when you sand them, you get this ghosting effect. And that's where you've sanded through the top layer. The metallics kind of float and harden, and it gives it a strange look right there. Most people would just consider that like a shadow line, but my eyes are telling me that was puddled up right there and they sanded that smooth. But looking at the guitar, I want to see if I can see any body lines. I know Squier, it's not going to be a one-piece body. It's going to be multi-pieces. So when you glue it up, different pieces of wood will contract and expand at different ratios. So even though you sand them perfectly smooth, maybe after a month or 2 months, the wood will reacclimate, and you'll get one that'll expand a little more than the other, and it'll cause a little line in the finish. Sometimes eventually it'll crack through the finish, especially nitro guitars. Poly is a little more resilient, so what you'll get is you'll get a line. You'll see it in the reflection. It'll mirror and then kind of go like this. So that's what I'm looking at. I'm using the studio lights, and I'm looking for that spot. I'm not seeing anything on the top. Let's flip it over. Look at the back. The only thing I'm seeing on the back is around every furl, I can see there's a little ridge like this in the upper poly. And that's on every hole. And that's no big deal. There is a binding on the bottom half of the guitar. And I want to look at how crisp that binding is. And again, we're looking for that sanding error where the paint finish was built up. And I see it right here. There's a little ghost line right there. And again, I don't think most people would actually see that. That's the only spot I see there. Now let's look at how it was taped off on the edge. And I see the gold is up on the white binding on the top, about a 64th of an inch. Because you can see that it does get a little darker.
Mike, you said probably going to be a collector's piece someday.
Yeah, I've got a Squier M80 that I love. And that's a Squier custom shop guitar. It's kind of rare, but Squier did have a custom shop for a little while. And I do see that ghosting right here. So that's where the paint pulled up on the tape and then they sanded it and then clear coated it. And I'm not seeing it in any other spot. And I have pretty good light here. I've got a lot of light here and a little less light there. So as I move the guitar, I can get the light to sheen on the metallic. All in all, the finish work on the guitar is actually pretty good. There are a couple spots. Like I said, this is metallic. So on a lot of guitars, they would have more errors than that, but you wouldn't even notice it on a solid color. It's the metallic is making it pop out. The only masking error that I see is right here. That is a masking error where they pulled the tape and it did go into the paint line just a little bit. All the other spots are just from the paint pooling and then they sanded it. In reality, it's pretty good for a metallic finish. Now this guitar has a pickguard on the top, and we're going to just tap around on it, make sure it is tight. It has a lot of screws. There's no deflection in that plate. It's very solid. We do have 2 screws on each pickup here. And I'm shifting that pickup, and it is returning to 0. This pickup here seems to be doing the same. And this one's fixed. It's screwed right to the base of the base plate. Now, feeling our bridge, I want to see if there's any sharp edges. Now, I've been playing this guitar for about a month, and I can already tell you there are no sharp spots on this bridge. It is very smooth. Now, sometimes on Telecasters, if you look here, this little intonation screw is on an angle, okay, and it comes through the top. I've actually seen those screws so long to where they're almost up and even with the top of the string, and you can feel the screws in your hand. This one does have a little rake to the screw, but the screw is only sticking out on this saddle. It's probably 5/16 to 3/8. This one's a quarter. This one's about 3/16 through the saddle. So there's plenty of room for intonation in each direction. Now these do not look like compensated saddles. If you look, it's a drum saddle, okay? And I'm not seeing any spot in the saddle where they changed the arc point. Like right there is where the string is going over the saddle. And it's the same on this side. So they haven't chamfered into this barrel to change or compensate for intonation. Now, I want to see, sometimes, this one we can't tell. Sometimes the neck here will be cut out and it fits over top of the pickguard. In this case, it looks as if the pickguard butts into the neck. It does not appear that the neck goes over the pickguard. Looking at our pocket here, the neck does appear to be sitting tight to the body. So if there is a shim in there, it's going to be very small. Looking at our gap here and here, it's very tight. It's very nice. It's a nice fit. Let's go down our neck. Now this one, since it is Squier, I do not think this is rosewood. This is probably laurel. And it is a nice color. I don't have any issues with the color of that fingerboard. Sometimes on these cheaper rosewood look-alike woods, sometimes you'll get these white stripes. This one's quite nice. It's got a nice dark appearance to it. We do have position dots on the top. And feeling the laurel to the back part of the maple, I cannot feel the transition. Now the back of this guitar has a high gloss neck. I'm going to move it back and forth and try to catch the light. So this is high gloss. And just feeling it, I can see where this neck could possibly get sticky on stage if you sweat. Right now it does have a little bit of a drag to it. And usually when I feel that drag on a dry surface, my hands are dry, the neck is dry, that's usually a pretty good tattletale sign that if you start sweating, that it's going to start hanging up. If you don't like that, it's fairly easy to hit some 4/0 steel wool and just go over the back of the neck and knock that finish off. But it is very smooth. I do not feel the grain whatsoever. So it has a heavy coat of polyurethane. There is absolutely zero grain texture to the neck. Now feeling the contours of the neck and the headstock, yeah, it is 100% sanded, urethane, and buffed. It is super smooth. Every little contour, even in here, it's just butter smooth. And I wouldn't call that a volute, but it does ramp out just a little bit to hit this flat spot. So the neck isn't flat, if that makes sense. And there is zero kick on this neck. So the neck is straight and the headstock is straight. So it does not kick back 5 or 10 degrees.
Jude says he doesn't like gloss back of neck or painted neck.
So back here we have the older vintage style tuners. And I've used these tuners. They do seem to hold tune really well. I'm not going to say that they're super smooth. They feel smooth, but they're not super smooth. But I'm going to say they're okay because I've been playing this guitar and I don't feel the guitar goes out of tune due to the tuners. I don't think they're slipping at all. I've played the guitar quite a bit. It holds tune very well. Jumping ahead, this nut, when I bend the strings, I don't hear any popping or cracking or anything of that nature. Now, I have not checked the first fretted note or the intonations on this guitar. But just feeling it right here, pushing down on the strings on the first fret, it seems like it's pretty well cut, you know, for a stock guitar. We'll know more once we check the first fretted note. Now, I know some people will say, well, you have to gauge it and it has to be X distance off the first fret. Yes, you can do that, but that doesn't mean you have to. If you can cheat a couple thousandths here or there to get that first fretted note a little closer, I always try to do that. But I always qualify that if you're chasing the first fretted note and cutting your nut based on that, you can easily cut the nut too deep and then you'll start buzzing on your first fret. So be careful doing that.
Mike's in there.
And Mr. Mike is in the house. So, going down the frets. Now these are conventional frets. You know, I've reviewed a lot of guitars with ball-end frets. I think ball-end frets feel really nice. taking your hand down the neck, they feel really nice. There's one drawback to ball end frets that I've noticed that some guitars that I've reviewed, like Leo James, had some issues with it. I've actually had some Fireflies that had some issues with it, where when you strum hard, the high E will bounce and you get caught underneath the ball end. Now in this case, it cannot do that. The fret goes all the way out to the fingerboard, and they feel that. So even if the string goes around it, there's nothing there for it to get hooked to because of the way the fret's in the neck. See that? So that's one of the advantage to these type frets. The disadvantage to these type frets, if they're not dressed properly, they can have a sharp feel to them. These frets don't feel sharp, but I'm not going to say that they're greatly dressed. Now I'm pushing really hard on these frets. I'm not feeling anything super sharp. I don't do the stocking test like some other channels do. I don't think it would catch, but I do feel the corners. 10 or 15 minutes, just one pass with a file dress, dressing these ends, they would be beautiful. Now, since I've been playing this guitar for about a month, I've broken in the frets. And if you watch this channel live, you'll know when I first started playing it, I said that the frets had a little bit of a grit feel to them. And they did. When I first got this guitar, I'm not going to say that they were super polished. I could feel just a little grit in the frets. I will say this, within a week and a half of playing the guitar, now the frets feel fine. Do they feel super polished? No, because I never polished the frets. But the frets feel smooth.
Like he says, but how does it compare to a Firefly?
Well, comparing to like a Firefly, Linnell's yelling in the comments. I have reviewed some Firefly guitars where the frets were just like mirrors. So glass smooth. It was like I did them. And then I've also reviewed some Fireflies that felt like sandpaper underneath the frets. I'm going to say that the frets on this guitar were average for this price point. Like, I have a Jackson JS that we're going to be reviewing later. But when I first bought this guitar, the frets felt very similar to that $300 Jackson. It feels similar to other $300 to $400 guitars that I've reviewed. But I am surprised at how fast the frets broke in. So I'm going to say that they were polished well at the factory, and maybe just sitting around and on the boat over here there was a little corrosion on the frets, just something. Because if they weren't done properly, just playing the guitar for a month and a half would not get you to this point, unless it's very, very soft metal. But the frets feel decent now. I'm not going to say that they were perfect as far as the dressing, but at this price point, they are fine. I'm just pointing out, it's so hard to say, are they good or bad? We haven't checked them yet. I'm just going by feel. Right now, I would not take this guitar downstairs and polish the frets. It's not worth it. Would they feel smoother? Sure, they'd feel smoother. But this guitar plays fine just as it is. When I first picked it up and I felt them, I'm kind of like, I'm going to have to polish these frets. When I put a new set of strings on it, I'm going to go ahead and polish these frets. I have not put strings on it, and I'm not polishing the frets. They broke in just fine. Okay, up here we do only have one string tree. And something I like on the higher end Squiers, they don't just bore the hole in the neck, they put that little insert piece in and then bore. Makes a little accent on the truss rod. I like that. If you're not going to have the wheel down here, at least dress up the hole if you're not going to put a cover on it. And some of the cheaper Squiers, they don't do that. It's just a hole. So I like that they dress it up just a little bit. Okay, going over our controls, this is our volume, and the volume feels very smooth. I have no issues with the volume. The tone does feel a little softer than the volume. When I go to turn it, it takes more force to turn the volume. That does not mean it's not smooth. It's extremely smooth. But the tone knob moves much more freely, and it is smooth as well. Feeling our switch, it is a 5-way switch, and it has a nice solid engagement. I'm not a big fan of the big plastic barrel switchy thingy that they put on. I think I've said that in a couple other videos. It just looks like I know that's a Telecaster thing, but in my opinion it just looks like this big plastic can that they stuck on the end of the switch. But it functions, and the switch feels solid. Looking down here at our jack, I like these jacks. It has the barrel nut in it, and it's a compression fit. It fits in it. I like that. And yes, it's not sunk into the point where a 90-degree angle jack doesn't work. I've used a 90 in this, and it works just fine. Okay. Before we get too far into it, I want to check the neck. Since this is a Squier, I'm going to start with a 10-inch radius gauge. So this is probably either a 9.5, a 10, or a 12. And I can already tell you it's a 9.5. It's tight in the center, and there's just a hairline crack on either end. Let's check our top. Yes, this is a 9.5 radius top and bottom. I had a 9.5 radius gauge. This is my 10. I can't find it, but I know it's a 10. I've done enough of these to where I can tell you it's a 9.5. So here's our fret rocker. Now I've been playing the guitar. I haven't noticed any dead notes on the guitar, but we still want to check the frets and see how well the fret leveling was done. This is, I believe this guitar was made in Indonesia. Nope, this particular one is made in China. So let's check the China-made Squier and see how well they did on the frets. And I would say that I would go out of squirrel mode when I find a bad fret, but being that we're doing this live, there is no squirrel mode. So I'll sit here and just talk to you guys. And right there. So just a little bit of a rock dead center.
Jerry White says it's kind of has a Tele vibe to it.
So this fret right here from dead center all the way down. Is it a bad rock? No, it's not a bad rock. But it is rocking. Most people would not fix that. That is a little bit more than polishing would resolve. But if you hit that with 1600 grit sandpaper, just on the top, really lightly with your finger, and then polished it, it would be fine. Now it's rocking here. I want to move down one fret and make sure it doesn't rock again, because that's horrible if it does that. That means you can't just fix one fret. You have to go over the whole guitar. And we're solid. We're solid. We're solid. So that means we have a high fret. I would much rather have a high fret than a low fret. Low fret, you got to redo all the frets. That takes a lot of time and a lot of work. Right there, when I say it's a little bit, it's just a little bit right above the B string. And right under the B string. And it's good right there. That was a very minimum spot. No one would, a tech wouldn't even have really stopped there, but I am pointing it out. Everyone knows that I am just very, very, very picky.
Jerry White said it's a low fret. He's asking.
The fret up there is a high fret. You'll have a low fret if you have a fret rocker that's rocking on a fret and you move it down to the next fret. Let's say we're right here and let's say it's rocking. Okay? If I move that down to the next fret and it rocks again, that means one of those frets are low. And the only way to fix it is to sand all the frets. But if you're rocking here and you move back one or up one and it doesn't rock, that one fret is high. That's easy to fix.
Jude said, Avery, do you do refret jobs?
I do. But I'm going to tell you right now, if you have ebony, most likely you're going to have some chip out. And if you have a maple neck, sometimes you'll get a little chip out on the maple as well. Rosewood and laurel are the easiest to do. And if you have HPL, it's definitely going to chip out. And I probably would not do an HPL if it was made by a foreign manufacturer. But if you have a high pressure laminate made by a company I can call and get the mixture, right there. When I say a little rock, it's just barely rocking above the G. Anyway, if I could call the manufacturer and get the mixture of the resin, I wouldn't mind doing it. But let's say if you got a groat with an HPL and it chips out, you would have to do a mixture and just try to match the color the best you could. It's an epoxy resin neck. So usually you can see any repairs that you do to that.
Curtis Gill said a solder gun to heat up the fret reduces chip out.
Yes, you can do that. Basically, it heats up the glue. But remember, heat makes things expand. So it doesn't make it come. It actually makes it come out harder because heat expands things. What it's doing is it's loosening the glue. You're supposed to use a heat activated glue. Some CA glues, they don't like heat. So when you put heat on them, they catalyze and they crystallize, and that frees up the wood. So that's essentially what you're doing. And most modern guitars in the last 15 years or so, it's a CA type glue that they're using. All right, so we had one fret on 3 strings up here. That one needs to be fixed, and 2 other spots that had just barely rocked. I would say it's pretty good. There was nothing at all wrong with that. I've reviewed guitars that are $1,500 that'll have spots just like that. Is it perfect? No, it is not perfect. We have had some on the guitars on the channel have passed, but I would say on average, that's a pretty average fret level. And I'm going to say anywhere from a $200 guitar up to a $1,600 guitar, because that's pretty much the most expensive guitar that we've had on the channel is $1,600. I've seen more expensive guitars have more issues than that. I'd say that's pretty good for Squier. Pretty good neck.
His Fender Strat needs fret work or replacement, but he thinks it's ebony. He says it's a dark color.
Yeah, ebony is really hard to work with, Jude. I think if you wanted me to do it, I mean, I would prefer not to work in ebony. just simply because it's ebony. Um, and it has nothing to do with that. If it needs refretting, then do it. But if you can level the frets and fix them without refretting it one more time, I would do that before refretting the guitar. Unless you want jumbo frets or something. If you pull them and you go to a larger fret base, sometimes you can do that. It's not just the height. You can go to a wider fret too. The wider fret's going to make it play silkier, if that makes sense. Because you could put a less of a crown on the fret. It's going to give it a more played in feel. So if you go with a real wide fret and a jumbo on the height, you know, that's spot on. But just because you go wide doesn't mean you have to go tall. So you might want to consider that if it is ebony. Go to a wider, taller fret. Alright. Now we're going to check the factory neck relief. So I'm assuming since this is a Fender, it's most likely 25.5. So let's set it up here. And I'm looking at the neck to the wall behind me with the light on it. And this neck is pretty much perfectly straight. I'm going to say it has maybe 0.1 millimeters of relief. It's just barely showing light in dead center. In reality, just moving the truss rod that much would give you that amount. So they've got the neck pretty much set perfectly straight. Alright, let's check some pickups here. And no, if you're asking, have I made my special plug? No, I still have my alligator plugs. I'm a little slow, but I am going to make me a cable to where I don't have to sit here and put these little alligator things on the end of my cable. And I might need a battery. Well, first, before I do that, nope, I think it's just that I had the volume down. Yep. So in our bottom position, that's going to be our bridge. We're reading 7.32. And our second position is going to be these two. Bridge in middle is 3.36. In our center position, 6.07. These two pickups, fourth position is 3.39. And then just the lipstick pickup is 7.43. And that's set to 20k ohms. So that's our ohms rating. So let's check our Henrys. So in our bridge position, we have 3.07. So what was our ohms on that? 7.32. So that's about a little over a third, I think. So that's telling me that it's not a super cheap pickup, but it doesn't have a lot of windings, but it's not super cheap. Because our Henrys is 3.06. If that was around 2.5, something like that, I would say that it's a highly wound pickup. But that's not bad. I was expecting that to be much higher. Our Henrys on these two, it's going to be 1.42. Henrys just on this one, 2.27. Now I want to go back, I want to check the ohms on that one. 6.07. So I'm going to say that that one has quite a bit of copper on it. Check it again, 2.27 on the Henrys. These two pickups were down to 1.21. And then this pickup alone is 2.19. Checking our ohms, we're at 7.43. So actually, I think these are pretty decent pickups as far as the winding count and the amount of copper that's on them. Because when we go back to our Henrys, we're dropping down to 2.19. That's surprising me. I did not expect that result. And again, I'm using the Proster. It's a good one. And this is a BM4070. And you can get this on Amazon. It's pretty reasonably priced. It's the most reasonably priced one that I've seen with the proper readings to check your pickups. Okay. Since we're doing this live, I need to find power for my tuner. And the question is, where's the power? Because I do not have a battery. And I do see that we should have power somewhere. I should really plan ahead. This is the point in doing it live, guys.
Jude said he'll email you about it at some point. He said something has to be done. It's a beat up guitar, but it's been with him so long and he wants to save it if he can.
Yeah, I have a PV Nitro that needs refretting. Could I refret it? Yes, I could. And the main reason I stopped refretting guitars is you've gotten used to the way the guitar plays. And you go, oh, this is an awesome guitar. When you've refret an instrument, it is no longer the instrument that you once knew. The neck and the fretting is what gives the guitar its character. Does that make sense? I'm not trying to scare you, Jude. But if you, let's say you've got narrow frets on it now and you put jumbos on it, the guitar is going to feel completely different. And I always qualify that with people. They go, well, I'm putting the exact same fret on it. Right, you could be putting the exact same spec fret on it that was on the guitar when it was manufactured. But you've leveled the frets once or twice or 3 times, or you've never leveled the frets, and now the frets are just so chewed up, you've gotten used to the the grooves in the frets. You go, well, that's going to play awful. A worn fret's not going to wear a groove unless you're playing cowboy chords. Usually it'll wear a spot like this. It'll slope in, go deep, and then out. And it'll actually wear onto the fret in front of it as well, because that string's vibrating. And it'll vibrate over that fret. And believe it or not, even though like this fret will be chewed up, it's actually lowered this fret a little bit. If you go back over those with a fret locker, it's kind of scary what you find. But with that being said, when you refret the instrument, it's going to make it play completely different. So keep that in mind. If this is a guitar that you've had for a long time and you remember X, when you refret it, it's going to be a completely new animal. So you need to know how you want it to feel. Do you want it to feel sharp? Do you want it to feel smooth and broken in? All these things you need to answer so you can pick the right fret and tell the tech how to level and crown your frets. I like my frets flat on the top. It gives it a smooth, silky feel, but I like the fret to be high enough to where I can dig into the fret, almost like it being scalloped, if that makes sense.
He said he only paid $200 for it at a flea market about 20 years ago.
Oh my gosh. Alright guys, what we want to do now, we want to check the intonation on the guitar. And I don't know, let me see if I can move this back. I guess I should have looked at the camera angle long before now. I don't know if you guys can actually see that. See, normally I do an overhead, and it doesn't look like you can see it. So you'll just have to have faith. We're going over our E, and I'm going to bring our E up to tune. Now I'm going to do E on the 12th. And it is dropping off just a little bit. Well, so is the open. Give it another tune. Here we go. It's actually really good. Open. Our first fretted note. And our F is sharp. There's our A. A on the 12th. And the A is falling off. One more time, A on the 12th. Yes, the A intonation is just a fraction flat. Do our D. Open. 12th. Open. 12th. The D is spot on. Check our G. Open. When you first strike the G, it goes just a fraction sharp, but within a second it drops and balances out. I'm going to say the G is just a fraction sharp. Open. 12th. And the B is sharp. Go down to our high E. We are going to go back and double check the first fretted notes. Figured I would do this first to get the tension back on the neck properly. And our high E is spot on. So let's go back and double check our first fretted notes. Our E, low E, our F is just a fraction sharp. Our A sharp is just a fraction sharp. Our D sharp is just a fraction sharp. It's very close. Our G sharp is just a fraction sharp. That's very close as well. Our C is just a fraction sharp. And the high E, F, is almost spot on. So in reality, I don't think I would really touch the nut on this guitar. It is very close. Remember, we're not working with a compensated nut here. If you look at some guitars, they've tried to compensate the nut. Yeah, you can compensate the nut, but remember guys, as soon as let's say if we start on our E is perfect. Our first fretted note, our F is sharp. But look at our A. Our A is almost spot on the low E string. F sharp. Second fret B is a little sharp. Going back to our E, third fret. Our G is sharp. Let's just stay on the E. 4th, G sharp is sharp. The A is just a fraction sharp. So let's retune our E. Let's double check that A. So going to our A, I don't know if you can see that. That's not horrible. It's hard for me to hold the tuner and the, so let's look at our F sharp. See? But as soon as we switch it, it's going to fall off. Let's go up. Here's our B. See how it's getting better as we move up? Our C is sharp.
You got one comment that says they say to set intonation with new strings, and then someone else said they also say to tune a guitar and playing position.
Okay, I've debunked this a couple times. We're going to debunk it live, guys. Okay? Well, watch this. I have a guitar laying flat. There's our E. There's our E 12th. Okay? Does it change the tune when I... Yes, it will. But here's my point. See how it changed it just a little bit?
Someone says you're pointing at the wrong camera and can't see it.
Oh, sorry, guys. I thought I was pointing at this camera. If I go open, see the rotation? Now if I set the guitar flat and I do it, you see the rotation? It's even. It's not really rotating. I'm going to go to the 12th. See the slight rotation on the 12th? Now if I pick the guitar up, it does change the tune. Okay, see the rotation? Now before on the open note it wasn't rotating. If I go to the 12th, my point is, it's the exact same. Okay, if I set the intonation, okay, and I check the open with the guitar laying down, and I set the intonation with the guitar laying down, all I have to do is retune the guitar. It's only off 3 cents, 2 cents. By bringing that thing up 1 or 2 cents, you're not going to change the intonation. Does that kind of make sense? So if I set the intonation laying flat, okay, and I go to the 12th and I set it perfect to the open, okay, I pick the guitar up, now it's like this. Yes, the guitar's out of tune. When I retune the guitar, if I check the 12th, it's going to be intonated. The only difference is you're off a couple cents when you pick the guitar up. It's not like you're going down a whole half step. A whole half step, yeah, can change the intonation a little bit. But this little bit of difference, right, there's the open. You can see it moving. Now it's locked. That might be 1 cent, 2 cents off a tune. No one, not even Hercules with super hearing, could ever tell the difference from picking it up or setting it on your lap. Is there a difference? Just prove to you there is a difference. My point is, if you set the intonation and do all your tuning with it laying down, all you have to do is when you pick the guitar up, just tune it in the upright position. All your intonation and all your setup's still going to be fine. My point in all this was going back to the compensated saddle. If you compensate your nut, your first nut up here, you got a compensated nut. You still don't have compensated frets. So what I'm saying is you could get this first fretted note perfect, okay? Your open perfect and your 12th perfect. But that doesn't mean that all your other notes are going to be perfect. When I ask people, how do you want it intonated? Do you want it open and 12th? Or do you want open, your last fretted note, and then an average of every one of these? Do you want 12 sharp and 12 flat? Or do you not care about any of the in-between notes and you want open perfect and your 12th perfect? If your 12th is perfect, most likely you're going to be sharp down here on the lead. If you play a lot of lead, you probably don't want to set your intonation to the 12th, because normally when you set the 12th perfect, these upper notes will all be sharp. What most people say is flat is a little more pleasing to the ear than sharp. So you might be more better off to go here with this note. When you do your open, go to this note, and then set your intonation to this note, based off this note. There's 50,000 different ways of doing it, depending on how you want it set up. What most people ask, do you want an average or do you want it set to the 12th? I've done both on the channel, so you can go back and watch me set up intonation on guitars. I've done it both ways. If you do it on an average, you can expect to spend 3 or 4 times longer, because you have to check every fret and you write it down. Sharp, 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 flat, flat, flat. You look, oh, I've got 6 sharps and 6 flats. I'm perfect. Oh, I got 2 sharps and the rest are flats. Well, that's telling me that I got to move the saddle forward. I need more sharp notes. But when you do that, the 12th might not be right to the open. Does that kind of make sense, guys? I'm not saying one way is more correct than the other. I'm just pointing out there are a ton of different ways of doing it. Okay, let's since this is a Telecaster and it shouldn't be too hard to get in here, let's actually look at some of the wiring just right here. We're not going to tear the whole guitar apart, but we can get an idea just by taking these 2 screws out and seeing what's underneath the hood. And I'm sorry guys, I've been looking at that camera the whole time. I thought that one was the main camera. Somebody should have said something beforehand. And the electronics, we do have the printed circuit board switch here.
Pinafore said something earlier, but I didn't see it.
Looking at the solder joints, this solder joint looks really, really, really good. This one looks really, really good. This one, it is bonded, but I can literally see the wires sitting on top of the solder puddle. But all the puddles have a nice sheen. What happened here was they got it hot and that wire wasn't pushed into the center. It is laying in it, but it's not completely coated like all the other ones. I can literally see the wire sitting on top. Looking at the ground bond, that looks fine. Our push-pull, it's a nice ground bond there. All these look nice. It looks like they were up to temperature. I'm not seeing where they got this so hot that it melted the jacket back. It looks nice. I'm not seeing any wire fray, where they didn't get all the wires bonded and tinned. In other words, I don't see it growing hair. Looking at our ground here on top of our pot, this is, I don't know if you all can see that. There's one wire that's just kind of laying on top. That's a stacked puddle. I'm not a big fan of it. It does work, but I would rather see individual bonding points rather than you've got 1, 2, 3, 5 ground wires all bonded in that one location. That's a little excessive. They should have come over here and maybe bonded 2, and then bonded the other one. So you've got all 5 wires bonded here, and then they have the wire right here coming off the terminal pot over to ground. So they could have, well, they actually do. They have one So there's actually 6 ground wires going to the top of this pot. One's going in right here. But all the solder joints look like they were to temperature. I just see this one right here. I wish that wire was more in the puddle. But I'm not seeing anything bad. Looking at the route in here, it's not horrible. I'll try to pick the guitar up so you all can see that. Not really seeing any step down marks. Not seeing any debris down in it, like a ton of sawdust like on some of the Firefly guitars and some of the Leo James. You open them up and there's still, looks like a sawmill underneath the pickup. I'm not seeing that. So it was definitely cleaned out. I'd say it's not bad. I've seen worse on far more expensive guitars. But everyone has their own opinion. Now I know Mike is probably sitting there cringing right now going, oh, I couldn't handle that ground like that. Me personally, I'm not saying it's perfect. Like I said, I would prefer if they would have had multiple bond locations rather than trying to bond 5 wires to one location like that. But I tugged on the wires. They all feel okay. I've had conversations with Mike on Skype. I know he's very picky. Every Firefly he's ever bought, the first thing he does is he tears them apart and rebonds all the connections in the control cavity.
Jerry White wants to know what the body wood is.
You know, I don't know what the body wood is, Jerry. I'm sure that we could go to Squier and find out. But the guitar doesn't feel super heavy. And that brings us to the next point. Let's find out what the guitar weighs. So I do have my scale back here. So you guys are used to my 100% professional edited reviews. This is the 100% unedited review. Alright, I have the scale zeroed out and we're on pounds. So this guitar weighs 7 pounds, 12.9 ounces. And switching. I actually hit the wrong button. I'm trying to get grams. In grams, that translates to 3,538 grams. Just to double check, I'm going to switch it back over to pound ounces. Yeah, 7 pounds. Now it says 12.8 ounces. So it's not a really, really heavy guitar. When I pick it up, I don't feel that it's heavy. This is a comfortable weight for me. And I don't know if you can hear that. Another true, I like, something I've started doing, guys. Now when I go in the music store, I don't plug the guitar in right away. I take it. I want to hear how the guitar sounds unplugged. Does it resonate well? Do I feel the body vibrating against my chest? I can feel it against my chest.
Jerry said, what exact model is it?
This is the Squier Nashville Stratocaster. So this is a mix. If you're familiar with the channel, you know I love Strats. I love Stratocasters. My issue with the Stratocaster is they put the volume knob right underneath this first pickup. And if you just saw me playing, look, right there, that's right where I strum. So what ends up happening, and it's no fault of the guitar, I roll the volume down on a Strat. So when I saw this thing, I'm like, well, this thing's got Telecaster electronics. Look at how far away that volume is. I'm not going to hit it. So I think this is going to be the first Stratocaster that actually stays at the house, just simply due to the location of the volume knob.
Devastator said it's POPLAR. He must have looked it up.
It's Poplar? Yeah, I have no issues with a Poplar guitar. You know, Poplar's a hardwood. It's one of the softer hardwoods, but it is a hardwood. It's light, and it's pretty durable, you know, especially when you put a polyurethane finish on it. It's a pretty durable wood. It's not going to be like some of the cheaper Chinese stuff where when you put a shim in the neck and you bolt the neck down and you draw it, you take the neck off and it is compressed the neck shim right into the wood body. I forget what that type wood is. A lot of the sub $200, sub $150 guitars, you can literally take your fingernail and just push it right into the wood. It just keeps going. It's I don't know if it's basswood. I don't know if it's basswood or I forget what the name of that one Chinese wood it is. It's really soft, guys. Poplar does well.
Jude said he watched a video with Philip McKnight and the CEO of Guitar Center. The CEO said they unlocked all their high-end guitars. He said he went to Guitar Center today. Guitars are unlocked except $6,000 plus ones.
Yeah, that means what Jupe is saying, they unlocked their expensive guitars. Last time I was in Guitar Center, they had a lot of Gibson Les Pauls. They've separated their, anything over, I'd say $3,000 was on a separate section, and all those guitars were locked. Boy, I can see where they're going to have a lot of floor models and a lot of damaged merchandise. So give it a couple months, guys. If you want a $5,000 Gibson Les Paul, I'm sure you'll be able to get one for maybe $4,000 because it's got a nick or, you know, strum marks, and Lord only knows what else that could happen to them. I picked up a Schecter in there. It was a beautiful guitar. It was green, had this black finish, had a big chunk missing out of the body down here. But they only it was only $300 off. It was like a $1,300 guitar. They still wanted $1,000 for it. And there was a substantial chunk missing out of the guitar. And I just couldn't pay $1,000 for that guitar. Someone picked it up and just dropped it. So give it time. A lot of these guitars at Guitar Center, they'll come down in price. What's this, hon?
Jerry says it's the paranormal model.
Yes, this is the paranormal. Now,
and that it has a push-pull.
You can't really call it the paranormal because they have a bunch of paranormals. They actually have it's more of a Strat. It doesn't have the Tele piece. It has a volume and tone with two P90s. That's also a paranormal. The paranormal is the series. So this is a paranormal Nashville Tele.
Does it have a push-pull?
Yeah, it does have a push-pull.
Dean says, has anyone ever had a Sycamore electric guitar?
Never had a Sycamore electric guitar.
And he says, didn't Fender make a pine wood Telecaster?
Yes. The pine, we've talked about this on the channel. Pine has a really unique resonant character to it, especially hard pine. The redder part of the grain is very, very hard. The white yellow part is very, very soft. So as the wood resonates in a very peculiar way. Older speaker cabinets were made out of hard pine. They have a sound due to the structure of the wood. It's soft, hard, soft, hard, soft, hard, soft, hard. That's just the grain content. That's why if you sand hard pine, it's really hard to get a flat surface sanding hard pine with a rotable sander because it erodes away the softer material and the harder material doesn't sand. The only way to get a true level surface on hard pine is to use a helical head cutter on your planer, and then you scrape it. You don't use sandpaper, you use metal scrapers, and you pull. And that'll give you a nice even finish on hard pine. As soon as you hit it with an orbital or a DA sander, you're going to get those spots in the pine because it's so soft and so hard, all just in a little section. Next time you're around a piece of hard pine, take your fingernail and push on the darker section. It's really, really hard. Then scoot over to the lighter section of the wood, and it's like balsa wood at that point. But that's what gives it this unique characteristic. Those Telecasters that were made in that pine material, especially the hard pine ones, they're very sought after. Now they did use some southern pine, but what you're looking for is the one with heart pine. And I don't remember what years they used the heart pine on. It's the heart part of the tree. Really sought after guitar. Let me set the weight scale over here. Alright guys, we're going to turn back on the amplifier. And it will make a little noise. Alright, again, I'm just going to go through the settings on the guitar. We're going to start in our bridge, and I'm going to go through all positions, and I'll pull the push-pull so we can hear the difference in the push-pull. First, I got to turn off this mic, and yes, the guitar cabinet over here is wired, set up with two SM57 microphones in stereo. So if you're listening on something other than your laptop, like a TV with speakers on either side of the room, you should hear a little stereo separation. I'm trying to think of a Motley Crue song that I know. I'm probably going to butcher it. And no, I don't remember it. It's something like, I think it was Looks to Kill.
Mikey said do kickstart.
And I don't remember the rest of it. Kickstart Your Heart. We played that song years ago, guys. I don't remember it.
They keep saying looks that kill. Devastator said Avery can be our Dr. Feelgood.
Actually, I played that whole thing right there, and I was using the overhead, so it probably didn't sound that good. I really have to engage the other mic, and I'm getting ready to knock everything over. I'm going to give it a little bit more gain on the amplifier. Hey, it's all about music, guys. If you can mix and mix, that's what music is. Think about it. You know, Eddie Van Halen, what was he playing? He played a lot of blues and old stuff, just revamped. Let's not try to reinvent the wheel. There's only 12 notes. All those notes in different combinations, believe me, any combination you can think of, it's already been written. It's how you play it. It's the attack. It's the feel. Some nights I play more hair-oriented. Tonight, for whatever reason, I'm more on the kind of bluesy, you know, Stevie Ray. I wanted to do the Stevie Ray Vaughan thing. It's just what I'm feeling tonight. And there's nothing wrong with that. There's other nights that I just want to play and drop C and just beat the you-know-what out of the guitar. But tonight, it's just a different feel. Excuse me. But that's why we have different guitars. If I want to play hair metal, I've got some hair metal guitars that make me want to play hair metal. When I pick up an instrument, it needs to talk to you. If that instrument makes you create music in a different way, that's what you're looking for. You're looking for an instrument that's going to push you in the direction that you want to write in. Whether it's country, rock, jazz, progressive, whatever that is.
Jude says he turned a chicken picking guitar into a metal machine, LOL.
Hey, you know, I'm all about multi-use instruments. Can this guitar do rock and roll? Sure it can. And I'm sure someone that can chicken pick can make this guitar sound 500% better than what I made it sound like tonight. Hopefully I gave you a good demonstration of what the guitar sounds like on a medium distortion and a high gain distortion. We didn't really do any clean sounds. Don't really have my amp set up for clean right now. I've got it set up for medium distortion and high gain. I do have the Egnator, but I don't have it all plugged up. And I'm still getting my feet wet, guys, on doing this live review thing. I think we did cover all the bases on the guitar. I guess it's final thoughts on it. Being as that the guitar does not have compensated saddles, it has the drum saddles, I thought the intonation on the guitar for this type bridge was phenomenal. Remember, you don't have individual saddles on this guitar. you've got one screw that controls both saddles for the high E and B, just like the high or low E and the A string. So when you move it, you're moving both strings. So we only have 3 points of change on 6 strings. That being said, it's phenomenally good for this type bridge. The feel of the guitar I like. Now, the frets on this guitar aren't super tall and they're not super wide. It has more of a punch feel on the neck, if that makes sense. It's not what I consider, terminology, I don't want you to think it's not smooth. When I say smooth, it floats. This has more of a tack feel to it, if that makes sense. If I come up with a better word, I'll say it in the future. Right now I'm going to say it's more a tack feeling. It's got a sharper feel to it. You can dig into it. There is a little bit of round over to the neck where the edge of the neck is broken in. It's very comfortable to play. I can play this guitar all night long and not have any issues whatsoever with the frets. I actually prefer these frets, believe it or not, over the ball end frets. Simply because the last thing you need when you're getting into playing your guitar and you strum hard and that high E comes off the neck and gets caught underneath the fret. It makes it instantly sound really strange. And then you got to pop it out, and sometimes it puts a nick on the string and the string breaks within 10 or 15 minutes. So I actually like these type frets. Like I said, they broke in just fine. I think, personally, for my needs, at $329, the guitar's a keeper as it is. I was actually looking at other pickups for it, but the more I play the guitar, the more I realize that I like the pickups. And I've already turned off the amplifier, but if you've watched the live stream, you know we've already went over this. This pickup right here is slightly microphonic. So if I talk into this pickup, you can hear me in the amplifier. This pickup and this pickup are not. They don't pick up anything. But this pickup here does just a little bit. But I think I've said this before too. I think part of its sound is that. It has a chirp to it. And I think if you wax dipped this pickup, I think it would lose the chirp. I could be wrong, but I'm thinking part of the sound is due to the wax potting or lack of wax potting on this particular pickup. I think that's about it. I don't see any major problems with the guitar. It is a string through the back, if we didn't go over that. And like I said, when you unplug the guitar and you play it, it's quite resonant. I can feel the guitar on my chest. I don't know how much of that's coming through on the microphone. It's actually quite loud unplugged. And I think that's a sign of a good guitar. I've been doing that more and more when I go out and look at instruments. I play the instrument unplugged. Feel how the guitar feels without hearing it, and listen to the resonation of the guitar. How does it resonate? How does it feel in my chest?
Might be wants to know if that guitar has hollow spots in the body.
I do not think that this guitar has been weight relieved, simply due to the weight. If you go back in the video, we weighed the guitar, I think it was 7 pounds, 12 ounces. So if it was weight relieved with Poplar, it would probably be, right at 7 pounds or at real high 6 pounds. So at that weight and a Poplar body, as someone said that they had looked it up online, I don't think it would be weight relieved, if that makes sense. Poplar is not a super dense wood, so weight relieving this should put it into the high 6 pounds or mid 6 pound range. And everyone knows, if you go to Sweetwater and you look, guitars can fluctuate sometimes a pound. A guitar like this, you're probably looking at, maybe 10 ounces, 12 ounces difference on average from one side to the other. Since it's just a piece of maple, piece of poplar. Mahogany's really bad. That's why LPs are bad. I work with a lot of mahogany. Sometimes you pick up a piece of mahogany, it's extremely dense. You pick up another piece and it's not as dense, it's much lighter. So mahogany has a really wide range of density as far as cubic foot weight of mahogany. All in all, guys, I'd say this is a good guitar for the money. This one's probably going to stick around here. Like I said, I've always been a Strat guy. I like the feel of the neck. I like the look of the guitar. Everyone knows that I like Super Strats. You know, is this a Super Strat? No, but I like a Strat look. And with these electronics and the sound that it gets, I'm very happy with the purchase. And I guess since this is a guitar review, if you bought this guitar and you had a completely different experience with it, I needed to go down in the comments section and post what you received, you know, from Fender or your local shop. You know, this is just one guitar. The more people that post in the comments below, the more information is available for others. I bought this locally at my local music store, Shenandoah Music. They made me a good deal on it. Like I said, it was $3.29. I'm 100% satisfied. If you have any other questions or something that I may have missed, now's the time to ask. We did look at the electronics a little bit on it, and the electronics looked okay for this price point. Jude says brass. Don't know what that's regarding to. Does anyone that's watching the stream have this guitar? I guess that's the first thing. I don't even know how many people's actually watching because I don't have that window open. But I would say it's a good deal. You have to remember, guys, I just paid $300 for a Firefly, and that's a budget guitar. So this is Squier. You know, is it a cheap guitar? Squier's been around a long time, guys. It's a name brand. It's not like a Firefly or a Leo James or an IYV or Agile. Some of these companies that are just come out in the last 10 years. Squier's a proven company with the backing of Fender. So they have a lot of overhead. And for a company like that to produce a product like this at this price point, I'd say it's a win. And I'm reading the 17 of us. Well, I hope everyone enjoys the new format. Are we always going to review guitars this way? I think it's fun. I think it's fun to review guitars this way. Is it good for people that are watching at a later date? Hopefully they'll see the value in doing a live review. Because I'm going through it. Now, granted, I do realize it's going to take more time because I can't go into squirrel mode. I only get one shot at it, so I may miss things. But we did check the radius of the neck, we checked the relief, we checked the Henrys, the ohms, we looked at the wiring, looked at the fret ends, we played with the tuners, we checked the intonation, we checked the fit and finish, and we went over tones. So I'd say it's a pretty good review on the guitar. Our next guitar we're reviewing, would you like to see it? Would you like to see the next guitar we're going to review? I got a cool guitar, and I think everyone's already seen it, but we're getting ready to review a Jackson. Let me show you the Jackson. Am I a 7-string guitar player? Absolutely not. I am not a 7-string guitar player. This guitar was $200. Again, it was about $239 for a 7-string. It is a fixed bridge, and this is going to be our guitar for next Thursday night. So you can tell it is brand new. Still has the stickers on it. So if you all have any comments or anything on next week's or any particular information that you want me to go over and questions, put them in the community or the post section of the channel, and I'll make sure that I look up the information or I'll look at your all's questions. You know, well, what's the neck material? What's the body material? Scale length, all that kind of stuff like that, or any other questions that you may have on this guitar. Put them in the post section.
If that's a Rhodes model.
I don't think this is the Rhodes model. The reason I fell in love with it is this headstock. You know, I always liked the V. I just didn't care for the beak headstock. You know, the standard Jackson headstock. So when I saw this V with more of the Strat type headstock on it, you know, most of them do 4-3. So this one's 3-4. I thought that was, I mean, I'm sure other manufacturers do it, but most of the time what I see is 4 tuners on the top and 3 on the bottom. So I thought that was kind of cool too. Kind of different. When I saw it, I was just like, you know, that's a unique V. And it's an offset V, so this little guy here is a little smaller.
Devastator, well, Dean says everyone have a safe and good weekend.
Yep. So next Thursday, we're going to be reviewing the Jackson.
Devastator said, what did you decide on the RevStar? Cancel it or keep it?
I have not called about the RevStar yet. I don't know what I'm going to do on that, guys. I had problems with my amplifier before the review. I need to get a hold of Mike. I don't know if Mike is still in the chat. I might look into seeing how much it's going to cost to send my power amp to Mike. I'm starting to think that I'm having issues with my power amp. At first I thought it was the output stage of the ART, but now I'm thinking it's actually in the power amp. I may send Mike a message on Skype, and I might see how much it's going to cost to send my Pro Valve out to Mike. So if I do that, I may end up having to use the Line 6 processor for a couple weeks, guys, because that is my only tube power amp. I do have some other power amps, but they're solid state. So we might be rackless for a couple weeks until I get the amplifier fixed. It is still working, but it's been getting worse and worse each week.
Jerry wants to know what model that guitar you had in your hand was.
That's the JS32 Offset V by Jackson.
Mike says, I'm here.
Yep. Hey, Mike, I'm gonna. I don't know how busy you are, but my power amplifier is in need of some service. It needs it needs all new caps. The amplifier is 30-some years old. It just had new tubes put in it, but it's probably going to need new tubes again. Of course, you have to reset the bias. It's going to need to be recapped, and it's going to need new potentiometers, 6 new potentiometers on the front. They've been sprayed, and they just won't stay clean. They're just full of gunk. Yeah, and I think the one actually, some of the traces are gone in it. So I don't know if you're super busy, but if you're not super busy, I would love to send you the amplifier so you can let your magic fingers fix it like you did my inline tube sweetener. And guys, if you don't know it, I think that you can right click on Mike, and Mike has a channel here where he does pedals and stuff, and you can get a hold of Mike. He's an excellent amp and refurb guy for your amplifiers and pedals and stuff like that. He does great work.
They're saying it's a Rhodes body style.
Yeah, it probably is a Randy Rhodes body style. It just doesn't have the Randy Rhodes headstock on it. That's what drove me to the guitar. Most of the Jacksons, where the electronics are, there's a pick guard, like a plastic shield, where they route it from the top. This one is routed from the back, so you don't have the pick guard. I never cared for the pick guard on the top of the V. And I never cared for the beak headstock. If I did, I like the reverse headstock. Well, that's a more expensive model.
Mike says I'm always free for you.
Oh, wow, that just does not sound good. All right, I'll hit you up on Skype, Mike. But yeah, that'll be next week, guys. And don't forget, Saturday night we're going to do our standard live So again, go to the post thing, and I'll set up a post when we're done here, and we can come up with what our topic's going to be for next Saturday.
Or they can just comment on this video.
Or you can comment on this video. Yeah, that always helps YouTube. So you can go down below and say, hey, Saturday night's live stream, we're going to do this. That works too, guys. And again, I want to thank everyone that come to watch a live stream review of a guitar. If this continues to work out, we'll continue doing it. It is more interactive, and I enjoy it much more doing it this way.
Dean says thanks for live streaming. Always learn new stuff.
Oh, thank you, Dean. You know, I just want to do something that no one else is doing. I don't really think too many channels do live detailed reviews. So we'll try this, see how it works out. The last live didn't do too good as far as YouTube is concerned. It sees it as a live stream and not necessarily a guitar review. This video kind of went off on tangents in multiple directions, so I don't know if I can label this a guitar review or not. But anyway, it was fun doing it.
And says the lives are great.
Yeah, I like doing the lives. But remember, guys, we're going to do this on Saturday. This is just this was really the test stream, but now we've just kind of converted into, we're going to review a guitar every Thursday night. No matter what, we're going to review something every Thursday night. So until next Thursday, I'll see you guys Saturday night. And like I said, just post down below or go to the post page at the home channel, and let's get the new conversation up and going on what we're talking about Saturday. And I've been trying to say it a couple times. I want to thank everyone for coming in and watching it. It means a lot when I see, I think we had like 17 or 18 at one time. Before you leave, hit the like button, and the little emoji characters, dude, they do so much. YouTube counts. Every chat message that you all put in the chat, it counts. The more chats, the more it pushes it. The more little emoji thingies, the more it pushes. It sees super chats. All these little things on how interactive you guys are in the video, it determines on how much it's going to push it. And the comment section and the like button does the exact same thing. They really have a matrix for everything that you could possibly think of. It was actually watching and listening to you all type, and what I've seen with YouTube now, in live streams, what you all are typing, it knows. And it'll throw commercials based on what you all are talking about just in the chat. It's actually quite scary, but that's how it works. All right, guys, thank you so much for tuning in on a Thursday, and I'll see everyone Saturday night. Thank you so much for coming and checking out the live stream and reviewing this guitar.